Hello, everyone, and welcome to your Daily Detroit for Friday, May 17th, 2024, coming to you from our studio at Corktown in beautiful Detroit, Michigan. I'm J.R. Stays, and a little something different for your Friday. We're going to be talking about the big new stadium proposal deal, whatever you want to call it, for Detroit City FC at an old hospital site in Corktown, steps from Michigan Central. Joining me to dive into my left, Fletcher Sharpe. How are you, sir?
It's the morning, but big news morning, so a little bit energized.
I feel like we're very well positioned to not only talk about some of the facts, but opine a bit on this one. To my right, Norris Howard. How are you?
I am excellent. I am hopped off 2 dirty chais. I am ready to go.
You're ready to go. All right. So this show is going to be divided in 2 parts, what we know from our own work and various reports. And then we're going to get into some bold speculation, just overall team talk. I will say right now that more details are coming out on Monday. So some of these questions will be answered, but I figured it would be fun to kind of prognosticate a little bit as well. One thing I want to do before we get into it, guys, let's do a couple of minutes and set some baseline about Detroit City FC. Because something I realized when I was getting coffee the other day was like, there's still like a lot of gaps. Like there's the hardcore fan base of DCFC, but I think the public still has a lot of gaps. And this team's been around since 2012. I don't know who wants to take it, but kind of talk about like the beginnings of the club, how they've, where they are, what division, what that means, all that stuff.
So originally the club started in 2011, 2012. The year before, they were a recreational soccer league, the Detroit City Football League, which still runs today in like a very large scale operation now. And the owners decided, specifically Sean Mann was like, we could get a semi-professional team out of this. And the first team had like everyone tried out, and the video they had was actually kind of cool, where it's like, we got people from Detroit, we got people from Farmington, we got people from Novi, you would see people you played against just up there trying out, and you're like, this is pretty cool. And then it evolved from that to what it is today, where they started out in the MPSL, did the best they could, getting to like a semifinal, losing the semifinal, but then moving on to NISA soon after, then winning everything in NISA, and like literally everything. And then soon after, moving into the USL Championship, where they've hit, a bit of a struggle, but like, it's kind of the growth of moving up as a professional team. And right now, they're maintaining 3rd in the Eastern Conference. So, like, to see the growth from 12 years ago to now, where they were using, like, no disrespect to Dave Dwayhe, one of the owners, but using, like, a math teacher as their holding midfielder, and now they have international players playing. Like, it's such a big leap. But there, like you said, there's still people who don't know about the club in the city.
Yeah, and it kind of reached a little bit of notoriety nationally and internationally within soccer circles because of sort of the atmosphere after the team moved from Cass Tech, where they used to play in the early years, to Keyworth Stadium, where they play in Hamtramck right now. And the supporters groups that have been a part of DCFC since the beginning are known for being incredibly raucous. They're set off flares and smoke, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of that on ESPN and other sports outlets. And so it's become quite a brand, internationally known in soccer circles. And this is just the latest development in that growth for a team that I think more people in the metro area should know more about.
Oh, I 100% agree. I mean, it's an absolutely fun time. And so people know there's a women's club, there's the youth club, there's more than just like the 2nd division team. And so let's talk about this site for a little bit. We know that it is tucked over by like that I-96-75 area in Michigan Avenue, like Michigan 20th. This old hospital has been sitting vacant for nearly 2 decades under the control of Dennis Kefalinos, who, let's just say, for various reasons, he has properties in various conditions around the city. So back in March, the land was bought by a company linked to Edward and Emily Siegel for $6.5 million. This current property is a little less than 6 acres. Reports say the final plan would be about 10 acres, as well as 14,000 seats. Be ready for 2027. This is going to be a big deal because this will trigger the community benefits ordinance, and this is where development and soccer come into play. We're kind of in a good place to talk about this. You don't trigger that unless there's the development totals $75 million or more and get $1 million or more in property tax abatements or $1 million or more in city land. That means there's going to have to be a neighborhood engagement process. There's going to, be back and forth. The club in a press release says that neighborhood conversations are going to start later this year. This is a really big deal. And if you look around, second division soccer actually has some pretty big projects.
Yeah, definitely. And when we compare this to some of the newer stadiums that have been built over the past couple years, we look at, I don't want to say Memphis because they haven't finished theirs yet, but
Actually, I think they're delayed.
yeah, they're delayed for some financial issues. But Rhode Island FC, they're up to about 130 million. The entire development will actually cost around 284 million. That's with all the community development that's around there. Colorado Springs has built a stadium that is a fraction of that, only 8,000. And so a lot of sort of second division USL teams have created soccer specific stadiums, smaller in scale, more intimate, almost in the same way that you would expect to see a lot of stadiums in England around the turn of the century. They're kind of following that model in the USL, and you're starting to see a lot of those stadiums across the US spring up.
And I think it's good overall. One, it gets away from like the really negative connotation that like in America they play soccer on football fields, which when you look up and see yard lines, it's kind of hard to debate that point. But to have your own soccer specific stadium, not only does it just allow you to do what you want to do with your stadium, but say, you build a 10,000, 12,000 seat stadium, soccer specific, maybe the women's national team wants to come by and play. And in Detroit, that hasn't happened because they used to play at Ford Field. I got to cover a few of their games, and while they were very happy to be in the city, they hated walking on Ford Field's turf. They compared it to playing on concrete with like a layer of like glass on top, which feels horrible to play on. So having a field that's, your own specific stadium, you've seen it with Louisville, you've seen it with other places where like the women's national team and maybe other teams can show up, have friendlies at your stadium, do whatever, and it gives you some more revenue because you have people who might not be coming for your team, but who are coming for a bunch of other stuff. Maybe with DCFC's international series of friendlies, maybe some more teams are like, hey, let's get up there, maybe go to that field and play.
Yeah, and even though this is second division, this is a big project. And if you look at some of the numbers, like you're talking about Rhode Island, that stadium is expected to cost $130 million with a surrounding development of $284 million. Recently completed Louisville City FC, $200 million for the complete development. Not all of it's done yet, $65 million for the stadium. We're talking about a serious structure here. And the USL has been making a lot of moves, but also, I think we have to open up the question, does this open up other doors, guys?
I think it definitely does. I think from the city's perspective, it kind of put something in that no man's land that didn't attach Southwest Detroit to Corktown, right? There was that sort of area where that hospital sits that's the last bastion of really developing Corktown into being
with a big parcel, with a big
parcel, and allowing it to be finally complete. And so I think that's a huge positive there. I think there's more attractions now, and now Corktown can perhaps expand and develop even more. But I think for DCFC's sake, and a lot of people are going to be very angry with me for saying this is phase 2 of the plan.
Well, not the official plan.
Not the official plan, but this is sort of phase 2 of what I think is the eventual adoption of the MLS into the Metro Detroit market, because not having a soccer specific stadium was going to be a barrier to getting an MLS franchise here. I couldn't see too many franchises wanting to come in and develop it from the ground up, especially considering the strength of Detroit City FC's brand. I think with this stadium, plus additional investment, plus if the team continues to succeed, because with a new stadium with better grounds, you're going to attract better players. It's a possibility that this could be the next step into eventually the MLS.
And not even just succeed, they could be mediocre at best, but if they keep building their brand, kind of like FC Cincinnati, who were decent in the league, had a few great years in the US Open Cup, and we're all right, but they were never the champion, but they were a team that was consistently known around Cincinnati. So people are you know what, let's invest and get them into the MLS. And now they currently are, and they are doing a lot better than they have in the years past. But as long as they keep expanding their brand and showing we are an actual organization professionally, we run things this way, we do this, we're expanding to a stadium that now completes another neighborhood. And I hate to say it, because while I do like the aesthetic of having a stadium within a neighborhood like Keyworth, you can't be a professional team in a neighborhood in this country in a stadium that you cannot build any further. Like, you have to have somewhere where you can expand and not, over arc on some people's houses. So, I mean, it's sad. I like the aesthetic very much. So you see it in like places like England, Brazil, etc. But like, for them to grow, they have to leave Keyworth. And I know some people really don't want to hear that, but if you really love this club as much as you do, like, you should have a happy smile with a sad tear.
Well, for a number of reasons, the Keyworth situation is untenable.
Yeah.
If we're being very honest, it's just untenable. They don't own it. You need to own your stadium. You need to get that revenue from that stuff. I think it's so crucial. But okay, I want to go back to this point though. Guys, do you think there's a lot of fans who are going to hear what both of you said and they're going to be a little disappointed because there's a big thing about like the anti-corporate about MLS, and this is that we have nothing from the team. I've texted the team. They didn't text me back about any of this project, and I've texted the city. The mayor has no comment. What do you think about that, guys? Because for me, what's interesting is as much as I talk about this team, the number one question that comes in our inbox, and it's like a 30 or 40 or 50, like it's a huge ratio. When is it going to be MLS?
Those people who'd be a little bit upset about that should have been upset already, as they moved from a very independent league into a corporate type league, from moving from NISA to the USL Championship. So getting a bit more upset when you move up to MLS feels a little redundant. But I mean, I understand the mindset that most DCFC fans have of like, we're going to do this guerrilla style. We're going to do this our own way. And moving up to the MLS, you cease to become a club and you become a franchise, a part of the organization, which, yes, that takes away some parts of that. But as we've seen with FC Cincinnati, seen with St. Louis and other clubs who've moved up, whether it's the same team or a different version of it, you've seen it grow throughout the entire city. And part of Detroit's issue right now is they've been around for 12 years and they've existed, and like their fans really know, and like people who follow sports to a degree know, but you don't really grow in a city until like the random dad opening his newspaper is like, oh, this club still exists. And they go from there. If you don't get people like that to come to your stuff, like, you're going to start failing. So I think this is their step to get that audience.
So I was listening to sports radio yesterday, not a mention. Like this project may be $100 million. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be a significant project. Not even a mention. And people are like, oh, wait, stadium? And that always stuns me.
Yeah, well, it shouldn't stun you because, first of all, $100 million spent anywhere makes the news. But the thing about it is that soccer in this market, I'm not just saying nationwide because in other markets it does move the needle, but in this market is a non-factor. And the reason why it's a non-factor is because we don't have a top-flight professional team. And
now, do you think there's that expectation among Detroiters that we should have top-flight teams?
Yes.
Yeah.
We are a major top 10 sports market. We are one of the oldest, largest sports markets in the entire country, and not having top-flight soccer is going to relegate us to a sideshow if mentioned at all. And I think I want to second Fletcher's point, which is, I have followed this club. I've loved this club since its inception. I've been to the matches. I've waved the scarves and all that at Estadio Cas Technica. And my thing is that you should get the credit if this team moves up to the MLS. Like, I don't think those two energies have to be separate. I don't think because this team moves to the MLS that the supporters groups cease to have sort of an ownership of the club or cease to have a connection to the club. The club is not what it is without those people. It doesn't get as popular as it does without those people. And at the same time, if you wanted to get more popular, make more money, get in better players so you can win stuff and be happy, then you got to move up to the next level.
Well, it's not just about winning stuff, but in America, it's sustainability. It's really hard to be, when you're in a system that's this much capitalism, it's very hard to fight against it. And the challenge is that in order to get your own stadium, you have to show that you're going to be able to make that money back. And I am very torn about it because I don't necessarily love incentive deals, but I also know there is no way without some sort of something that this doesn't get, like, that's just not how this city works. It's not how America works. And I wish it were different, but woulda, coulda, shoulda, we have to live in the real life. And your choice is either this club uses incentives and gets a stadium, or it languishes on the vine at Keyworth, because Keyworth will not stand forever. Literally, it will not stand forever. No. Right. It literally will not.
No, and you know, it's good that they're making these plans before, you know, somebody goes to Keyworth and gets hurt, because just the stadium is that old. There's only so many repairs that can be done on the stadium. And I think DCFC has done a great job at using as much of Keyworth as they possibly could. But this is going to be the only way. There's going to be sponsorship deals that they didn't have access to beforehand. Now that this stadium, you know, if this once this stadium's complete, there's going to be potentially naming rights for this stadium that they would have never gotten if they stayed at Keyworth. There's going to be events, and as Fletcher was saying, like the men's and U.S. Women's national team can come to the city and actually have friendlies that we would have never gotten before, or they would have been held in Ann Arbor to be at Michigan Stadium. These are all positive things that are happening directly because Detroit City FC is a club that wants to get bigger and deserves to get bigger. And so I think this is all in all a part of the plan that was set in motion the moment they moved up to USL.
Yeah, and kind of to piggyback off that point, there's a quote that like one of the owners, Alex Wright, said during the press conference when they moved up, and it was about like how all these young children like are Lions fans or Pistons fans or Tigers fans because they could watch their parents be fans and grow into that fandom. And he's like, for DCFC, we have to move quickly, because if we don't move quickly, the kids who are wearing their jerseys, you know, a few years before might not be wearing them in the future because this club might cease to be here, kind of to go to your point of like languishing at Keyworth. So like they realize they have to move, and in order to move, like you got to go to where you get the most eyes. And in this country, whether people think it's just or unjustly, most of the eyes for soccer tends to fall on Major League Soccer. So
to you, this is all a fait accompli. Like you think this is just not a matter of if but when.
Yeah, I mean, if and this is not a slight to like Detroit City FC supporters or the market or anything, but if it was a team that had like a bit more notoriety, people knew them a bit more, like say like Phoenix or say Tampa or Sacramento or even Louisville.
But there's also a different TV market. Detroit's a huge television market, and I think that's really important in this equation. We can't forget it, you know, like it is a grand prize. People don't realize that.
I mean, it is, but also like maybe those other places aren't as big of a market, but like those teams are known like statewide and like known within their own state, whereas Detroit might be known in, say, Illinois. But you ask a common person outside our studio about Detroit City FC, and you're going to look like, what are you talking about? So like they might have a large TV market, but like they don't have the common fan yet. They're doing more to attract them to their games now, but in order to get bigger, you need to have more of those people in there, more families of four buying hot dogs, more random guys showing up with their friends, like we're going to go to this game and be, you know, go crazy type of thing. And you can't grow until you get those. And I think they started to realize that like last year, like we have hit a plateau where we are doing well, but in order to do better to get to the next level, we have to now go somewhere where we can get more people like this in our stadium.
That's such a huge point, man, because when you think about just a random weekend warrior and how many times they end up just like at a Tigers game or at a Pistons game or something like that, or a Red Wings game, like you need that ability. And it's weird that Detroit City FC doesn't have that, because people are able to go to the games and maybe you'll be lucky enough to get one of those cool suites. But which by the way, I think in this new stadium, they should totally incorporate the container suites. They should bring that
for sure.
They have to bring that with
for
them.
Sure.
But I think that this allows them to do that, because right now, it's very much so a if you know type of crowd, and you can't sustain a professional sports organization on, you know, hipsters. I hate to say it, but you can't.
So many times, like you'll see someone show up. You don't see people go to like Tigers games or Pistons game and be like, I went to this cool event over the weekend that you don't know. So many times you see a DCFC article, like someone has some notoriety showing up, like, I went to this cool event. Look at this TikTok or this thing that I made or this art. And it's like, this has been around for so long. Like, why are you making it into like some little like hipstery type of, it's like not that thing anymore. It's an actual event, but because it's not as well known or not as well seen in the public eye, like it's going to continue to happen until they move somewhere where that's just not the case anymore.
Billboards, okay? DCFC, listen to me. You guys are building this stadium. Everybody in the city must know this. You need to be just raw dog.
I shouldn't be getting random
Yeah.
questions on the queue line like I did yesterday.
Yeah.
Hey, Jer, da 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 da. You know, so this opens up another question for me. Again, in the realm of speculation, this is a lot of money.
Yes, it is.
And the city is not, or the benefits or brownfield tax incentives, which you're going to need to clean up that old site, right? You're going to need them. This is a lot of money. So I start thinking, where is that money coming from, right? Are we going to get the bold speculation? This is totally wrong answers only. But I'm like, is it Ryan Reynolds? Is it Ryan Gosling? Is it, you know what I mean? Are we about to get, the
ownership group, yes, will grow. It has to.
Do you think it's already grown and we just don't know?
It's possible, but I think it will be public. The closer the club gets to breaking ground. I think
it's going to have to be.
Yeah, because it's going to have to be. I think that the CBA stuff is huge, and this is where I think the folly of the club is, and this is where I will be critical of the club, is that if DCFC was one of the most known franchises in the metro area, at least from the major league. You remember the Detroit Vipers? They were more known than DCFC is. Like, they were a minor league hockey team.
You see more retro Viper jerseys than you see DCFC jerseys.
So, because they promote it.
I have a retro Detroit Viper jersey.
So do I. So the thing is that they promote it. You could go and get tickets at like Mr. Allen's or whatever. Like, you could go and get tickets wherever and go to these games.
I just don't want to have a negative vibe about all of this.
It's not a negative vibe, but just let me land. So what I'm saying is that it is going to be a lot harder for them to sell the CBA aspect to the greater populace because DCFC is not as known. They're going to say new stadium. They're going to say new stadium for what?
Yeah, on Instagram, people are like, "Why are they building this stadium? Why don't they fix the roads?" And it's like that. This is a private problem. That's a public issue.
Well, number one, roads are maintained by the state.
Someone's like, "Oh, someone's like, why are they building a stadium? They don't have a team." It's like, they do actually. They've been around for more than a decade. But and someone's like, "Well, where do they even play?" I'm like, "It's at the bottom of the thing.
It's on the post."
They play in Hamtramck, man. Like you got to read the whole thing, man. We shouldn't be having to spoon feed you.
Come on, Fletcher.
So like, I mean, that's to Norris's point. Like, it's hard. It'll be harder to ask for money because they're not as known. I think they probably will still go that route anyways. But like, it's what you need to do to grow, and they've made it very clear they do not want this club to die out. So if you do not want it to die out, you got to help it survive. So helping it survive means sometimes moving and adjusting, and this is one of those moments where, could be an indelible mark in their history. It could be, just not an indelible mark.
Well, this took a different turn than I thought. I am excited about the facility itself. I'm excited about getting that old hospital down. There's a lot of things that I am excited about, but I do agree with all of you that I don't know exactly what that change looks like, but I hear all of you around the magnitude of that change, especially if you're going to be asking for public dollars. It's interesting to me to see people like Eric Larson from the Downtown Detroit Partnership quoted on board with this project. I can't help but be like, hey, I see what you're all saying. It's just, I have that emotional underdog, like, tug at me now.
I don't. I want to be the best. I'm tired of this underdog crap. I don't want to be an underdog anymore. I want to be a dominant Manchester City, New York Yankees. We beat everybody and everybody hates us. I'm tired of underdog. I don't want to do that anymore.
And you have a great player. Guess what? We're going to throw a bunch of money, and now he's our great player.
That is what I want. That is where I want us.
Kudos to developing this guy. Enjoy him wearing these colors for the next few years.
And it's like, we need to stop acting like we've never been that. Like, the Red Wings at one point were the most dominant team in the
Yankees of hockey, for sure.
The Yankees of hockey, storied franchise, the best players in the world, an entire line of Soviet defectors that were the best players in the world. Like, come on, man. Like, this is what I want. I think this stadium is a step in that direction, because you're not going to get those players and that energy and that atmosphere without a bespoke stadium. So I think this is a net positive. I think Fletcher and I are just being a little bit more realistic and understanding the situation around DCFC and how it is going to be a little bit difficult to sell that, I think, to the rest of the population.
And I mean, even still, like, they They got a few players who are great. They got Ali Koot from Bohemians. They got Maxi a few years ago. But like those are just I want to say stroke of luck for Maxi kind of. He was trending down for a minute. They took a chance on him and he's repaying it in 20-fold. But like you see like as they've started to maintain and show that they can hang around a little bit, they're starting to get some European players who are like, okay, I wouldn't mind spending a year or two in Michigan. You don't typically hear that because Detroit, while it is big media market, still considered a small town market for a lot of sports things. So, like, in order to then grease the wheel and get more people who want to show up, you got to show like we have the digs, we have these places that you want to show up, we have a stadium we're going to pack with people who are going to be screaming your name. And while they'll be doing that definitely at Keyworth, we have somewhere even bigger and larger with more people who are going to do that. We're going to get other things around this stadium to make it so that you want to be here. So you got to grow, and that's really the long and short of it is they want to grow, they want to stay alive, they have to grow.
All right, so say I am a supporter who I signed up for this thing because of like that culture, and there's a belief by a lot of people that you're going to erase all that culture. Like, what do you say to that person or someone like me? What do you say to them?
Do you want your club to succeed, or do you want it to just be your secret little, secret handshake, right? That is what I would say to a supporter that feels that way. Because when I enjoy things, I want those things to succeed. When I watch a TV show on Netflix, I don't want it to go away after season 1. I want it to stay around for a few years so I can finish the story.
And you don't think it's possible to stay in the USL? You don't think that's an ability to happen in the second division?
No, not in this market. I think you can. I think you eventually will plateau. I think when you look at the energy that the MLS has, I think when you see the Apple TV deals, you see the Messi effect, you see all the things that are happening to the sport in America right now. You look at, there was a point in time where, the sport, I couldn't see groups larger than Portland and Seattle. I couldn't see the fan base growing outside of that. But now when you look around the country, you see Cincinnati, you see Charlotte, you see the El Trafico between LAFC and LA Galaxy, and you see Atlanta United, and those are some of the biggest sports draws in those towns. Detroit can do that too.
Before, people used to wear Seattle Sounders kits because the front sponsor was Xbox, and it's like that's the Xbox jersey, and that's what people wanted it. And then a few years later, people were like breaking down like Alonso's defensive midfield, and it's like, okay, like people are starting to dig in now. And then it just goes from not even that to like say Cincinnati or St. Louis or these other people in these other cities that aren't necessarily soccer hotbeds that like have become like major areas. I mean, Atlanta has like a pretty big population, but like Atlanta United is like, they care more about them than they care about the Falcons. And like, that's a very crazy thing to say out loud, but
the numbers bear out.
Well, when you go to Columbus, it's Crew. If it's not Ohio State, it's Crew.
Yeah.
Like gold or yellow and black flags everywhere. Bars. It's a weird thing just to go to random bars all over, and it's always Crew stuff.
And like Detroit can do that. They can do that here.
And you don't think it's possible here? You don't think it's possible in USLC?
I think it's possible, but not here. And I'll use an example again. Phoenix Rising. Phoenix Rising has 18 owners, but like half of them are people you can look up online. Like they have people like former pitcher Brendan McCarthy. They have Didier Drogba, Chelsea legend who also played in the MLS. They have Pete Wentz. They have Diplo, to the point where Diplo even sponsored the front of their jerseys with Mad Decent the first few years. So like they have people who have pockets who are like, if we need to stay second division for now, we can do that, but we can also move when we need to move up. Tampa Bay, similar. Louisville, similar. They have these owners who have pockets who are like, we can maintain where we are right now, but like we would also like to move up at some point. Detroit doesn't have that. If they want to stay here, either they need to add a lot more owners to like help do that, or like someone needs to find, an old nano who left him like $800 million. So yeah, no, it's very much like if you're trying to maintain and you don't have those deep pockets now, like your next goal should be setting yourself up for the next step to go up. And I know, again, a lot of supporters who are super blood, sweat, tears, rouge and gold, treasure and blood colors, like that's something they probably don't want to hear. And it's like the Titanic. Like, do you want to go down with the ship, or do you want to get on this life raft and then continue to go forward.
Yeah, but that's my last question to those supporters. And again, this club is nothing without the supporters. But I ask why? Why don't you want to see this club grow to
Because
be the
MLS
top
stands
flight?
for a lot of things that people feel are not okay as far as corporations and greed and monopolies and all of that stuff.
It's just I don't care. I don't care. I want to see this club successful. I want to see this city support a team that is winning. I want to see this city get top flight soccer because I love the sport. And I love the club too, but I love the sport. And so my thing is I want to see the top flight in this country, in this city, because I think that's what this city deserves. I don't want to hold this team just for me. I want everybody here to be going to this new stadium, having a good time. I want to see little kids wearing Maxi's jersey that go to Renaissance High School. Like, I want to see little kids on the east side of Detroit, wearing DCFC kits because they got to go to the game, and that was the first sports game they got to go to. Like, kids here don't have that experience quite yet, and I want to see that.
And I mean, you have a few supporters who are like, if they go up, I'm done. I'll say this, even if you don't want them to move up, if you have shares and they go up to MLS, like, your shares are infinitely much more valuable. So you could sell them then and then get out and be happy. So, like, even if you don't want them to go up, because, again, some of the supporting things that happen, some of the flares, some other things that happen with the team, again, those things go away. When a team goes from the championship to MLS, very much so, the team that you knew before kind of ceases to exist. You can check Wikipedia for, like, the Sounders, for the Timbers, for Whitecaps, whoever. Like, their history stops and then restarts as like the same club with the same name, slightly different logo depending on who's still running it, etc. So, like, some people don't like that, and I understand exactly why, because it kind of feels like your club is dying. When technically it is, but it's like a phoenix. It's rising up from the ashes. So you should be happy about that part. I know, like, it stings, and I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna say exactly how people should feel about this, but in the same way, like, if you really care about your club, like the way you care about your club, if it's like the thing that wakes you up, where you're like, I am consumed with this, you would want to keep going in as much capacity as it can. And obviously, something going at all is better than it not going at all.
Yep, resurgence ceneribus.
That whole section, will be clear, it's you guys' opinions. It's very interesting to talk about. We don't know. We're going to know more on Monday. I'm looking forward to hearing about it. So this has been great. I've been really enjoying talking to you both. Fletcher Sharpe, Norris Howard, thank you both for making the time to come in here on a Friday. I really appreciate both of you.
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
Now, as always, thank you so much for listening to your Daily Detroit. Thank you to everyone behind the scenes who make this happen. Thanks to our members on Patreon, patreon.com/dailydetroit. With that, I am Jer Stays. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll talk next week.